Hello, everyone, and welcome back again to the Soul Sync Sessions Live. I have my amazing friend, Dr. Cheyanne here. So she does amazing mobile chiropractic work and nervous system resets and all these amazing things. We're actually both in Savannah and do co-working together and all kinds of fun things. So I'm like beyond excited to have this conversation this morning with her. So Dr. Cheyanne, if you would give an introduction about who you are and what you do, that would be amazing.
Well, Sam, I want to thank you so much for inviting me to be a part of this conversation. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Dr. Cheyanne Nance. I am trained as a chiropractor, but I like to tell everybody that the work that I do is really at the intersection of the mind, body, and our nervous system. We live our life through our nervous system. So, through chiropractic care, I am here to remove some of that stress and that interference that has been getting in the way of people functioning at their best, firing on all cylinders. And I've extended some of that progress or that work that I do to include my master's of positive psychology coaching, which is really another avenue to help people break unhealthy cycles, meet them where they're at, and help them find a way to move forward and flourish and thrive no matter where they're at, what circumstances they're navigating.
That's amazing. And I'm all about like me as my business, I do mind, body, soul, and business. And you're very much integrating every part of the mind, body, soul component. So I love that. I think from your perspective too, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but you focus on the body and just kind of clearing up all of that interference as you said, where it's like I'm more focusing on like a spiritual side of things of like where's a pattern or a block, but I feel like they're very much interconnected of there just being a block or you not working at your most optimal when your body's not working. And my body and resetting my hormones and everything was a huge thing. And I think that sometimes we don't realize until you're out of a situation or you kind of take a step back for a moment how your nervous system is kind of fried or just not working optimally. So, are there any things that you consistently see with people that you're like, okay, your nervous system is off? Or what are some signs and symbols that they can kind of start to recognize and tap in to see before they crash? What are signs that they could use some work there?
Yeah, that's such a great question. And it's one that I encounter quite frequently because there's a lot of people who don't realize until their body's yelling at them that there's something going wrong. And I always like to remind people that nobody's broken, nobody is already, we're all whole. We all have this capacity as humans to tap into what our body has the ability to heal from the inside out. So, some of those signs and symptoms that show us, hey, maybe I'm not as functional as I could be or as I know I should be, are brain fog. That's a huge sign and symptom. Another thing that I run into is physical pain. And that's our body's way of letting us know, hey, something's going on. That's one of those alarm bells. But even if you're not experiencing physical pain, your body's probably trying to communicate to you that, hey, I need a little bit more support. And that comes in, like I mentioned, brain fog, our emotional regulation ability. When you find that you're having some really heavy mood shifts or otherwise you're just not acting like yourself, there's probably something underlying going on that's creating that interference within your brain and your body and the ability to signal back and forth to adapt to whatever stressor you're encountering.
Yeah. And I love that you touched on or pointed out that your body is sending you signals all the time because whether it is through pain or if it's just numbness or you're like feeling these different sensations, your body is telling you stuff. And I feel like I kind of believe too, depending on where you're holding the tension, it kind of can be a more specific messenger of like, where is that weight coming from, like psychologically or mentally? Or so do you see that with different body parts where if it's like, I know women oftentimes carry a lot of it in their neck and shoulders, or do you see kind of those patterns that come through with people that you work with?
Oh, 100% of the time. Everybody is different, but there are these commonalities that definitely show up. So, like you mentioned, women often feel like they're carrying the weight of the world. They're generations of family struggles, of things that haven't been fully resolved that they feel like they have to carry and burden for their whole family. In reality, we can unwrite and rewrite some of those patterns, but it starts with recognizing that that weight feel is there in the first place.
Yeah.
Another really common spot that people feel restricted or that notice that interference come up is in your chest. So when you feel that tightness in your chest, or you just feel like something is just sitting on you, a lot of the time that is actually that anxiety or that emotional response that has taken a hold. And sometimes just noticing that that feeling or that sensation is there is enough to remind you that there are things in your tools in your back pocket that you can pull out to try to release some of that, to open yourself back up to whatever the task at hand is and to find your way forward.
Yeah, and I love that, and I was kind of reminded about that a week or 2 ago. I just, like, had all like, my body was, like, buzzing, and I could just feel all of these different things happening, and I was just not taking a minute to rest. And then I remembered, I'm like, "Sam, you've not done any breath work in a very long time." Like, just coming back to your breath or resetting and kind of giving yourself that moment. So are there things even with as far as grounding yourself for the day or kind of, routines that you tend to recommend, or how can we even go about seeing what feels right for us to incorporate into those different routines?
I love that question too. And one of the things that I often find myself doing, I actually literally just did it, is finding my breath in the moment. So it's taking a moment to take a deep breath in and sigh it out. That's something that I think people forget that we always have access to
Mhm.
is our breath is always with us. It's a sign of life and we can make it work with us rather than allowing it to hold us back or contribute to that sense of restriction. So, breath is one of those first go tos that I always offer. I also have been talking a lot lately about the somatic shake.
Mm.
So, it can be as big or small as you need, depending on the environment that you're in, but literally just taking a minute to shake off whatever. It's kind of like a dog. If you
Yes.
notice, they always take a second to shake things off and it's followed by a big sigh. That's their innate way to get their physiology on board with getting themselves out of that cycle, wherever their brain was at or wherever they were focused. We as humans have that access too. And allowing yourself that moment to recognize you don't feel the way that you want to feel right now, or your attention isn't where you want it to be in that
Mhm.
moment, and giving yourself a chance to redirect to say, oh yeah, that's not what I want to do right now, that's not how I want to feel, I want to feel this way. And if that's, oh my gosh, I'm feeling so stressed, I'm feeling so overwhelmed, it's taking a moment to say, I would rather feel excited. I would rather feel powerful. I would rather feel joyful,
Mhm.
and reconnecting and allowing yourself to come back to that space
Yeah.
over and over again as much as you need to. Because sometimes we do need that constant reminder of, like, oh, I fell off track again. Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
Every time you redirect and you come back to what you want to be focused on, you're rewiring your brain, tapping into neuroplasticity, and allowing yourself to say, I'm rewriting this pattern right now. I'm choosing to do this.
Yeah. And I think that's beautiful, and I think it's important to note too that because you catch yourself in a pattern, it's not like, "Oh, shoot, I messed up. I was looking at this wrong way," or "I was, like, taking on the stress again." It's the shift actually happens when you recognize and you become aware that you have that pattern and that you did let yourself slip and that you can correct it and you can choose differently in every moment, and you can basically create your reality of what's happening because the only thing that you're really in control of is how you feel in that moment and where you can bring your attention back to.
You're so right. And I think that people often forget that we have control in the
Yeah.
present, that we can't change what happened in the past. And we have a hard time seeing what's going to happen in the future. But when you know that you're presently focused on what matters most to you, whether
Mhm.
it's a value or a task that's helping you get closer to those values that you said matter, either way, that redirect is rewriting the reality of what you're experiencing. And that choice is empowering you to move forward in a direction that feels good and authentic to who you are.
Yeah. And I think the whole thing is what it feels most aligned in that moment. And alignment is huge in a lot of ways and multiple ways within your business alone, because you're physically realigning the spine and doing that with your chiropractic, but then you're also helping to identify those things that we don't want to have in our mindset anymore or that we don't want to focus on and pivoting a shift so that we can be aligned with what we want. So can you talk a little bit about how maybe those two kind of come together where you're with the nervous system in the physical body, but then also within the mental space, or how there's some crossover there? Because I feel like that's a very big, I guess, core part of your business is the alignment.
You know, it really is. And most often people come to me because they start by noticing that something physically doesn't feel right within themselves and they
Yeah.
want some relief. But I find that more often than not, while yes, there is that surface level, hey, this is a problem and I want to correct it going
Mhm.
on, as we get a little further into that initial phase of care, people start to realize that things that were going on under the surface, whether it was organ dysfunction or otherwise just carrying burdens that they didn't realize were impacting them in different ways, starts to show up. And more importantly, it starts to clear out. You, as I said earlier, live your life through your nervous system. So
Mhm.
that's not just your brain and your body talking. That's how you show up in your relationships. That's how you show up as a parent. That's how you show up for yourself. So when you can find ways to redirect and come back into alignment with who you are as a person, your actions start to follow in every different aspect of your life. And so, yes, we're doing a lot of physical work that's helping people realign, but it's bigger than that. It's a mind, body, spirit reconnection, realignment that's happening as people start to come into who they actually are as a fully functional human.
I love that. And I love that you have both lenses and you're recognizing that's, I think, what I really appreciate about the holistic. Like, I think holistic has become a buzzword now where a lot of people use it in a lot of different avenues. But when you really look at the core of what that is, it's root cause and addressing what that is, not just sticking to the surface level of, oh, I have some pain, let me take some Advil. It's addressing, okay, yes, we have some pain, we're going to address that. But in order to figure out how to keep you in that place of alignment and to keep you in a place where you can move forward and move into actual wellness, we have to look at the perspective of what got you there and what that root cause was. So that's what I really love about like the whole mind, body, spirit. If you are ignoring one of those pillars, then everything else is going to be off. Because if your mindset is off, or if you're stuck in a rut in that place, then it's going to, like you said, it'll affect your relationships. It'll affect your ability to work or your business. It'll affect your body and it starts to take it all on. And one of the things too with that connection is I didn't realize how much stress could really damage your body. And that's how I got into a place where not recognizing that stress is a hormone. And I didn't make that connection until my hormones went haywire and they went totally postmenopausal. But we don't take time to pause and to be present and to recognize all of the things that we're taking on and to give ourselves credit for that too. And to not shame ourselves for getting into a place where we don't feel aligned.
That's so true. I find that there's something about that sacred pause
Yeah.
that we can take that changes the game. It changes the way that you view your current situation. And it's so it's such an interesting space to be in, to realize that you're not acting like yourself.
Right.
And people don't realize how much internal work there is happening under the surface when that
Hmm.
stress is starting to take over. And we get down on ourselves, that shame spiral starts, and it causes a lot of issues, that's for sure.
Yeah, and it's like we hear stress is bad, but I think that we don't associate with okay, stress is a chemical that's happening in your body. I also learned over that process, it's like your body can become addicted to that chemical of like those stress chemicals and those stress hormones, where it's like you recognize that you're not where you want to be, but your body is naturally kicking into that fight or flight mode and it's addicted to those chemicals and that response. And then in that from that place, you're just in survival mode and you're not able to tap into thriving mode. So are there any like tips? I know like breathing and things like that too, but are there any tips to kind of catch yourself when you're in the survival mode or help to ground yourself to flip the switch almost from like a survival mode into being able to thrive and break out of that spiral?
Oh, there's so many different things that come to my mind. And I'm so glad that you mentioned fight or flight, because I don't think that people realize that we're designed as humans to live 80% in that parasympathetic rest and digest mode. But the reality is that it's been flipped in especially American society, where most of us are walking around in 80% sympathetic dominance, where we're letting that fight or flight feeling take over. And it's all almost unconscious at this point.
Yeah.
So, some of those things that I like to do to bring myself back into a parasympathetic, let's relax and redirect kind of opportunity are a physiological sigh. That's the one of those first breath tips that we all have access to. So, literally taking a nice long inhale followed by a sharp inhale immediately after, and then a long, slow exhale. So, literally resets your physiology and allows your brain to fire back up as that oxygen fills your brain space. And it's also helping to ignite that vagus nerve, which is responsible for our parasympathetic control.
Amazing.
Another one that I like to use is, quite honestly, when I know that I am not as focused as I could be, or I am starting to get a little antsy in my body, is I'll just stand up and take it off, jump around a little bit, but it's getting into my body and noticing what I'm feeling here to tap in to that felt sense
Hmm.
instead of allowing that thought track to keep me in whatever that loop was, or instead of staying so hyper focused on what I have to accomplish, tapping into what my body's feeling in that moment and just noticing that is almost always enough to recognize, oh, I am holding some tension here. Let me drop my shoulders. Let me allow my chest to expand and give myself room to breathe, literally.
Yeah. Because we don't do that, and I think that is something that we live a lot of time and in our head, and we don't recognize that because that's just what we're kind of brought up, like you said, like the American society, we start from the time we're little, we're 5 years old, we're taught to sit at a desk, we're taught to work a certain way. And that's like when within my business, bringing in the human design perspective, It's understanding that we are all bio-individual and that we work in unique ways. So understanding what works for you and what doesn't. And a part of that is what feels good. And I think that a lot of times we kind of override what do I want or what does feel good to me because we're so taught that we should be doing things a certain way. We go to school and then we go to college and then we go to work. And it's just like these are the things that we should be doing. But if we were to stop and just say, okay, if money wasn't an object, if this wasn't a thing, what would make me feel good in this moment right now without the pressures of everything else? So like getting out of your head and into your body, I think is a huge part of that, of just being able to recognize what does actually feel good. Or is it a gut feeling that tells me like, yes, I'm super excited about this? And how can you kind of follow that spark and kind of ignite that and bring that forward in every way, the mind, body, and your soul?
Oh, absolutely. That makes me think about the concept of interoception. And I'm not sure if you know what that is, but to offer our viewers too, interoception is literally that internal felt sense. There are ways that you can increase interoception, but it's literally just noticing what is the sensation that my finger has right now. Oh, it's kind of warm. Or, oh, you're noticing that your stomach is kind of tight, that there's that sense of constriction happening, or anywhere else in your body. The more that you practice interoception through meditation or breath work, especially, is that opportunity to increase that skill. And there are certain minds that, like neurodivergent humans, for instance, most often have a lessened sense of interoception. The thing
Okay.
is that interoception is a skill set, just like anything else is. So when you practice learning how to enhance that aspect of yourself, then
Mhm.
you can strengthen and make that piece of you a little bit more resilient so you can access more of that no matter who you are or where you're at. And it comes through meditation, literally just asking yourself, what is this part of my body feeling right now? So if we take a moment, you can tap into and say, I'm scanning my body and I'm noticing that there's a little breeze on the tops of my toes. Or at the same time, oh, I can feel some warmth around my chest area.
Mhm.
Literally just naming that felt sense of that different body part and noticing that you're feeling two different things. You can do that with any piece of your body. And by doing that, practicing that skill, you're going to get better at noticing what is it your body is trying to share with you in that moment. And our bodies are so smart. They're always adapting and responding to whatever stress we encounter, whether we notice it or not. But practicing that skill of noticing helps you tap into that wisdom that's always being shared.
Yeah, and I love that you mentioned the wisdom because your body holds so much wisdom. And you mentioned too in the beginning, like our bodies are meant to be able to heal itself. So we get so caught up in, I mean, the traditional medical, pharmaceutical industries and different things like that, where it's like we kind of mask those symptoms and then they kind of progress further when you don't look at the root cause. But really just understanding, okay, what is my body asking for right now? Or what is it feeling right now? Because I think so much of our day, if you do take a practice like that, like I just thought of, I'm like, I feel like I need to like set a reminder on my phone or a bell or something like every couple of hours to just be like, do a body scan and see where I'm feeling different things. Because doing anything like that, and the more you do it, just recognizing those practices of getting into your body or understanding, okay, what is my body feeling so that I'm not overriding it and getting to a place where I'm completely detached from my body, which can happen. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And until you start adding practices like a body scan to your daily routine, I don't think that people realize how out of touch or disconnected from their bodies they've become.
Yeah.
So, a body scan is one of my favorite ways to start enhancing or flexing that muscle, if you will.
Mhm.
And I also love that chiropractic is a really great way to jumpstart or skyrocket that felt sense because it's getting your brain and your body reconnected in ways that it hasn't been in a long time. It's putting some motion into some areas that have been more or less asleep for a period and allowing that space for that brain body connection and those neural connections to re-solidify themselves and
Yeah.
in some ways rewire to rewrite a new pattern, a more positive pattern.
Yeah. And I love that too. And I think there's like that communication between your mind and your body, but all of the systems within your body are all interconnected and they're all so intertwined. So if one piece is off, you might be having one symptom or pain in a certain area or discomfort, but any dis-ease is telling you something that something is off, whether it's energetic or within your nervous system, or if you're just holding yourself a certain way, or you're kind of holding on to emotions too. Like, I love that book, Your Body Remembers, because it's so true. Your body remembers all of these different things, and you can hold on to these emotions. And sometimes when you do go through, I don't know if you've experienced this within your business, probably, but where people's bodies are remembering or holding on to emotions, and then when they get into a place where they are releasing or going through chiropractic or then working with you from a coaching perspective, it's an unlayering of these different things, and it does take time, but like your emotions are probably coming to the surface in some way to help heal that.
Oh, absolutely. The body keeps score is real.
Yes.
And to that point, I practice a technique called neuro-emotional technique, which literally gets to the core of what is that molecule of emotion that has been stored at the cellular level, at your DNA, to process for another time. The thing is that those molecules get stuck in our body because for whatever reason in that moment that we encountered that emotion, we didn't feel safe enough to process it. So your body is so smart that it says, whoa, we can't handle this right now. This is too much. We're going to tuck that away for later. We'll come back to it. The thing is that time passes and we are holding on to baggage emotionally that maybe showed up when we were 5. And
Yeah.
now we're 25 or 35 or 45 and noticing that we have the skill set now. We've got a resilient nervous system who has built itself around being able to handle some of these tougher situations. But if your brain didn't have the opportunity to release some of that association, then you never really came back to actually handle or process that thing. So it might be showing itself up, or it might be showing up in different ways through dysfunction, through that dis-ease. Your body has the capacity to heal it, but it doesn't know that it needs to be healed yet until you come back and re-identify and say, oh yeah, that did happen. I should probably think about that for a moment. NET is a great way to recognize there's an emotion that's been unprocessed. Now you are safe. Now you do have the capacity to handle it. And now we're meeting that emotion head on, allowing ourselves to feel it and release it so that it doesn't have to be baggage that we're carrying with us and further burdening ourselves.
And I love that you mentioned that because I think that there's a lot of talk nowadays, like on Instagram or online and all the spaces of spiritual bypassing or emotional bypassing, and kind of just the conversation has been started, I think, in a couple areas of allowing ourselves to feel and not just step into a space of like, I don't want to feel that, so I'm going to look over here and do this. So not completely bypassing, but allowing yourself to actually feel the emotion so that it can be processed and you're like, okay, that wasn't so bad, and I can handle the situation and actually move forward versus just stuffing it down further or kind of layering it on top. So I love that you mentioned those. Can you explain a little bit about like what that process looks like for you for that releasing the emotions and helping your clients to be able to feel that when they work with you?
Yeah, so we got to feel it to heal it, right? So in an NET process, we will literally start with either a statement or a feeling that has been hanging out in the body. So we call that a mind entry or a body entry. And we'll work through and identify via muscle testing,
Okay.
asking literally the body to say, is this something that we're congruent with, or is it something that we're incongruent with? And through physiology, via the muscle test, your body is sharing its wisdom to say, this is something that is triggering that physiology. And we identify whatever that emotion that's connected to that physiological response is and help to release that charge that's around it. So the memories aren't going to go away. You're still going to have the impact of that event is going to exist within you because we're
It happened.
not undoing things. It did happen, but we're allowing your nervous system to say, hey, that happened. I felt like this. And my brain made the connection that it was similar to this previous event that happened that was kind of like this. So it might be a very current event that you think is what's the main problem. Well, your brain made an association with that current event to a previous event that happened that was ever so slightly similar. You felt the connection. So whether you consciously made the connection or not doesn't really matter. Your body made that connection for you.
Yeah.
So through that process, we meet with that, we identify what that emotion is, and then literally it's as simple as linking up to the appropriate meridian system that we identified during our process and saying, okay, I know what this feeling is, and I'm going to breathe my way through it. And then after a couple moments of acknowledging whatever that emotional state was and allowing yourself to tap back into that inner child or that younger version of yourself that experienced that emotion at the first time, you then get the chance to acknowledge, meet yourself where you are at, and then release. And it doesn't take very long. It's usually just a couple moments of sitting, literally allowing yourself to sit in that emotional state as that younger version of you, to then say, oh, I feel a shift. I feel lighter. I feel different. My headspace can't even hold that memory in mind anymore because I notice that I released whatever that physiological charge was, and it's no longer a burden for me.
I love that so much. Like it's allowing them to feel that in a safe place and to kind of come into that. And a lot of times I think we don't or we take for granted how much our subconscious is holding on to, and it affects and controls everything behind the scenes as far as
Oh,
like
it so does.
yeah.
Literally, I had a patient recently who I did some of this work with, and ultimately, our first statement was something related to she wanted to be okay expressing herself creatively.
Mhm.
And we were able to connect the dots to a past experience where that first showed up for her. And we cleared that space, allowed her to process and feel whatever needed to be felt in that moment. And then we came back. And since clearing that space, she's been able to get back into the creative actions that she loves to participate in. So I literally received a pair of earrings this week because she made me some earrings because she felt like she could access that part of herself again. And that's just such a cool thing to really, I have like a tangible product that came as a result of the emotional work that we did together.
Yeah, and that's incredible. And I think sometimes, I mean, it is even as a designer, like my background is initially in graphic design, and I think that again with society and just the way that we're raised, we put so much weight on the money that comes from it, or defining what success looks like in that specific way, or what the outcome should be. And so sometimes, especially when you are creative, or I remember doing arts and crafts all the time when I was a kid and just having fun with it and not being attached to the outcome of what it looks like, and we put so much weight on the attachment to the outcome that sometimes when we become an adult, we have to redefine what creativity is and redefine what success is and kind of reassociate that to find the joy in it again. So I love that you're able to help them to not just process that but then to see what that actually sparks, and that transformation that you give is beyond just being aligned for that moment, but it's the clarity to move forward and the space to come back into your body and to feel grounded and creative and see that. So that's like, I love that story so much. So one question that I do always ask, is what was your point of impact? So you've got a, some very cool modalities that all come together and you're bringing these people back into alignment. Is there something that really sparked it for you as your point of impact that led you down the path that you are on today?
I love that question. And the answer is absolutely. I will say that on day 2 of working for a chiropractor in an office, I had that aha moment that was, oh my gosh, this is the kind of doctor I'm supposed to be. I always knew that I wanted to be a doctor since I was 10 years old. I just didn't know what vein that was going to end up being in. And on day 2 of working for this doctor, I was shown a pair of x-rays. They were 9 months apart. And he said, based on what I've taught you in the last day and a half, what do you think that this patient's experiencing when they first came in? And I said, probably severe headaches and neck pain. He said, you're not wrong, but this person was also severely depressed and suicidal. 9 months later, with a change in the structural integrity of their cervical spine, literally that first cervical vertebra was a little bit lower than in that first set of films. That was enough of a structural change to encourage more functionality of that brain. So 9 months later, this person was less suicidal, was no longer suicidal and less depressed, literally because of a 9 month structural change.
Mm-hmm.
That was my aha moment of, oh my gosh, chiropractic, you mean to tell me that the angle of this vertebra is impacting cerebrospinal fluid flow, which I knew as a psychology major would impact neurotransmitter function. That was the mind-blowing moment that chiropractic can make a difference on mental health care. So for me, I knew I'm in. It was about 2 months later, I was, okay, if I'm really serious about schools, which ones do I need to consider? And that just set the entire trajectory of who I am and how I became a chiropractor. I found positive psychology coaching around the same time, but I was so committed to chiropractic at that point that we followed that. But I knew in the back of my mind, I would always come back to figuring out what positive psychology was. So now that I have my master's, I tell people if traditional psychology is focused on what's wrong with you, positive psychology highlights what's going right within you and how can we bolster that and improve those strengths and those values that you hold so dear. So at the intersection of it all now, I am helping people physically, mentally, and emotionally connect the dots and create a path of action that works for them, not against them. And I lived that experience last year through my master's program because it's been almost a year since the unfortunate tragedy that my best friend committed suicide. And I literally had to use the skills that I had been learning to teach others to get myself through the grief process, or otherwise find myself in the spiral too. And it was the tragic loss that jolted me back into, this is what I got into the profession for. It's recognizing that there are people who are wandering around feeling hopeless. And the reality is that we're all born with the capacity to heal from the inside out. We are self-healing, self-organizing, self-maintaining organisms as humans. You just have to know how to access and tap into that potential to bolster yourself and pull yourself out from the depths. So through chiropractic, NET, and coaching, I'm really creating a space to allow people to recognize that potential that lives within them and to unlock it for themselves so that there is hope on the other side.
That's amazing. It's so magical. And I think the one thing, the theme that kind of came through that too is the self and coming back to the self and that you have to go first. So as women, I know a lot of times we are often very nurturing and giving to everybody else, but we don't take the time to come back to ourselves and to give ourselves the actual self-care and the consideration of what is going on with my body? What is my body holding? What does self-care look like and feel like today? And what does my body need in order to move forward? And so the fact that you were able to kind of take those tools and now you're using that to help everybody else to have that holistic picture in mind, body, and spirit is just, I love so much about it. And I love your energy. I love being around you when we go into our co-working sessions and just like we can just throw ideas off each other. It's just such an amazing space. And I think that everybody needs those mirrors in their lives. You can't just do it from a place of being in a silo by yourself. Probably need time to recharge and do all of that, yes, but you need to when it comes to the work, there needs to be that safe place that you can identify that you have as a mirror, to be able to actually let the healing happen through those connections.
Well, thank you, Sam. I have really appreciated that time and that space to offer that and to have that even exchange because you're so right. We get the chance to build each other up and have allowing yourself to be in those spaces can make all of the difference. It would have been so easy to allow myself to fall into the grief pit, if you will, and I recognize that nobody benefits from what I have to offer if I let myself fall to the wayside. So allowing myself to pour in and to heal in the way that I needed in those most recent or those immediate months after was
Mm.
huge. It also gave me the space that I needed to hit reset, to come back into myself and my entirety, and to come back and show up and shine my light so that other people can see and experience that and that we could play off of each other moving forward.
And I love that your tagline show up and shine. I think it's so perfect. And on that note, how can people show up and shine with you? I know that you're locally based in Savannah, but you do the mobile chiropractic. As far as your coaching, is that expanding beyond? So share about a little bit about your services and then where everybody can find you to follow along your journey.
Well, thank you, Sam. So, yes, as you said, I am locally based in the Savannah area. I'm also licensed in South Carolina. So, I am offering chiropractic and NET for all of my low country people here in Savannah and South Carolina. I'm also offering coaching services on a one on one capacity. And I've been working on a local and virtual workshop that's coming to a screen near you or an event space near you called Show Up and Shine. And the idea behind the Show Up and Shine concept is that it'll be a group of individuals who are ready to do the healing work, who are ready to show up for each other, show up for themselves, and connect some of the dots to get from where you are now, learn some skills about the nervous system, how you can tap into that self-healing capacity, and then take that forward with you month to month in your life. So I'm really excited to get that off and running pretty soon. If you want to stay up to date on what I'm doing and when those workshops are going to start happening, you can follow me on Instagram at Dr. Cheyanne and keep an eye out for an upcoming Facebook group that will be some accountability for the people who show up to show up and shine.
Yay! I love that so much. I'm so excited for these workshops to come, especially because I get to be in Savannah where I can pop into them. So I'm so excited that you have all of these different spaces and the work that you're doing is just so incredible and so powerful. And the light that you bring and help other people shine is just so magical. Thank you so much for being on here today and taking the time to chat with me.
Thank you, Sam. I really appreciate that. Like I said, if people want to learn more, at Dr. Cheyanne is the best way to get in touch with me, or you can reach out on my website at www.wheelhousechiro.com.
Awesome. And I'll put all of those links below in the video so that everybody can click through as well. And I'll tag you in all of the social posts so that people can find you as well.
Amazing. Sam, thank you so much for giving me some of this space to talk about what excites me the most. And I'm so glad that we've been able to collaborate and really bring holistic health to the spotlight for people, because I think that people are recognizing that as the tides shift, there is so much capacity that we have within ourselves, and they want to tap in and learn how to remind themselves of what's always been possible. And that's
Yeah,
self-healing.
I completely agree. And I love that that is what's coming to the spotlight. The thing that's been I keep getting reminded of this week is that generational wealth is switching to generational health. Um, and
Yes.
that is what I keep feeling like is coming through because generational health, if you don't have your health, you don't have anything. So you can't, moving forward, health is the way forward. So holistic health is the way to go.
Oh, 100%. And you know, so many people who have dealt with generational trauma and who are actively in the process of saying, that's not going to be what I give to my family.
Yeah.
Everything that we talked about today is just another way to say, I'm breaking this cycle, I'm breaking this curse. Generational trauma is gone, and
Mm.
generational health is here to stay. We're
Yes.
bringing health home.
Yes. Oh, yes. And I love that too because it is perfect. It's so accessible for people in so many different ways and just giving them the tools that they can implement on themselves or in the container to just amplify that. It's amazing. I love it.
Me
Awesome.
too. I
Thank
we got to
you.
keep showing up and doing the work for people, with
Yes.
people.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, exactly. In collaboration. And that's what these spaces are for. Perfect. I will talk to you so soon. This was so amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sam. I really appreciate you. I hope that you have a fantastic day.
You too. Bye.